The following is a summary of the Sicha of Shabbos Parshas Ki Savo Tov Nun. The speciality of the day of Chai Elul, the Frierdiker Rebbe gives out in two aphorisms. The first, Chai Elul is the day that brings Chayas into Elul, and he adds and explains that Chai Elul gives Chayas into the Avodah of Ani L'Doidi V'Doidi Li. The second, Chai Elul is the beginning of the last 12 days of the year, corresponding to the last 12 months of the year, and consequently one needs to make a cheshbon hanefesh, a soul account, in these 12 days, each day corresponding to one of the previous months of the year. And the day of Chai Elul corresponds to the month of Tishrei of the previous year, of the year bygone, that we need to make a cheshbon hanefesh on Chai Elul of the previous Tishrei. So from this it's understood that Chai Elul adds not only in the details of Avodah of Elul, but also in the general Avodah of Elul. So much so that it's a cheshbon, a soul account for the entire year. So we could frame it as the Elul of the Elul. Now, we need to understand, since the Avodah of Elul began Rosh Chodesh Elul, and that continued right through Elul, the 15th of Elul, when there was a full moon, which is the complete Avodah of Yidden. Therefore, what is the addition that Chai Elul brings to that Avodah? Behashkafa Rishona, it seems that the addition is in the concept of Chayas, that there is additional Chayas brought on Chai Elul. However, since Kol Yisrael Heim B'Cheskes Kashrus, all Yidden are kosher, and we presume that the Avodah before Chai Elul was with Chayas and with Simcha, therefore it must mean that Chai Elul begins a completely new type of Cheshbon Tzedek for the entire year, an Avodah Chadosha, not just an addition of Chayas, but a completely new type of Avodah, an Elul within the Elul itself. And this Cheshbon Tzedek for the entire year is connected with the Chayas which is drawn down on Chai Elul. It's not just an addition to the Chayas that was previously, however, it's a Chayas that brings a completely new type of Avodah. And by way of introduction to explain this, the month of Elul is a general month which contains the entire previous year. The year, Shana, is from the word Shinui, and it contains within it all the times and the places, because place is connected with time. And in the month of Elul, we can correct and bring to fruition and completion the entire previous year and prepare for the next year. And consequently, the Avodah of Elul is an Avodah Klolis, a general Avodah of Ani L'Doidi, the general Avodah of Bnei Yisrael in every single time and in every single place, which is our connection, our chibur and iskashrus with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. In more detail, there are the 5 Rosh Tevos of Elul, which spell out the Avodah of Elul, Torah, Avodah, Gemilas Chasodim, Tshuva, Geula. These 5 Rosh Tevos correspond to the 5 Avodas, which correspond to the 5 levels of the soul, Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama, Chaya, and Yechida. And consequently, the Avodah of Elul is a general Avodah which corresponds to the general Chayas within the human being. Now, to explain more in detail, Torah was given bichlolus ubipratis, in principles and in details. And you have the greatest principle until the smallest detail. And since everything which is in the principle is contained in the details, it's understood that in every detail is reflected the general principle. And similarly, in our avodah, in every specific avodah, there is reflected the general avodah. And this is drawn out also in our avodah in the world. The world was created for Yidden and for Torah. HaKadosh Baruch Hu looked into the Torah and created the world, and he placed the world within the heart of the Yid, and therefore in every single detail of a Yid's avodah is reflected the general avodah. So, for example, in every detail of time, in every second of time, or every space, there is reflected the entire Zman and Mokem continuum of time and space. This is understood better by reflecting on the teaching of the Baal Shem Tov and the Alter Rebbe, that every single second there is renewed the creation, the divine creative energy being pumped something from nothing into creation, and therefore the creation now in this second is a recreation of that which was the very first moment when Shamayim and Eretz and everything inside it was created, and therefore we have in this split second, although it's a detail, it in fact contains within it the entire principle of creation. And similarly we can explain in the concept of Teshuvah, which it says that one can do Teshuvah b'shaita chada uberiga chada, in one moment, which seemingly it's a very strange concept. How is it possible that in one single moment a person can fix something which they may have done over a long period of time? It could be a whole year, it could be many years, it could be from birth, it could be even from a previous incarnation. How is it possible in one moment to fix it? So the answer is, as we've stated, that in every single detail, moment of time, there is reflected the entire continuum of time. And therefore, in every single moment, it's possible to correct everything that happened previously. Where is this emphasized? In the month of Elul, which is a general month, and it has the capacity to affect the entire past year and all the koiches hanefesh. And therefore, in this general month, there is added a specific chayas. Let's take, for example, the mashal of the body. Chayas in the body is not an addition to the details within the body, and neither it is the sum total of the details of the body. Chayas is something which is completely higher. It is transcendent of the body itself. However, at the very same moment, it becomes the life force of the body, the very essence and the pnimius of the body. And to expand this theme a little further, in relation to klal and prat, the general and the detail, each one of them, the general point and the detail, the principle and the detail, each one has a certain configuration, a tzir. This, for example, is a klal. That is a prat. And you can have the klal reflecting itself in the prat. However, that's only a reflection. However, when we're talking about chayas, even though chayas is completely above the body, nevertheless, it actually permeates every single part of the body, and the body becomes living. And the reason is because chayas is an inyan atzmi. It's an essence. It's higher than any configuration. And therefore, it is drawn in every single place and in every single time. And therefore, in every single moment, you have the very essence of the chayas. So now we understand why Chai Elul, in which is emphasized the general chayas in our avodah of connection, of being connected with Hashem, and that's how Chai Elul can have a tremendous effect on all the previous 12 months of the year. Because the Cheshbon HaNefesh that started at the beginning of Elul, that was just a Cheshbon HaNefesh in the Sach HaKoil, in the summary of all the details of the avodah of the year. Different, however, is the Cheshbon Tzedek of the month of Elul, which is not in the details, not in the configuration, but in the very essence of the connection of a Yid with Hashem, and how it manifests itself literally in a Yid's avodah. In other words, one doesn't feel the tziyur, the configuration, but rather one feels the etzem hiskashrus, the very essence of the connection, which is the general chayas of the avodah. And that's why the Cheshbon Tzedek has to be in the chayas, and it can be in one moment, one can fix and complete everything which took place previously. Now we understand why Chai Elul is the day on which we make a Cheshbon HaNefesh for the month of Tishrei, because Tishrei is the letters Reishis, it's the Rosh Hashanah, and in the Rosh you have the Chayas for the entire year. One may add, Chayas, this Chayas manifests itself principally in the avodah of tefillah, not as a detail of avodah, but in the general avodah of Elul. Tefillah is connection. B'chol kareinu elov. It's the connection of a Yid with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And it's higher than any configuration. So not like, for example, Gemilas Chasadim, which is connected with the Midah of Chesed, or Torah, which is Chochmah. But nevertheless, Tefillah is something which is the very essence of its kashrus. And that's why Chai Elul brings a chayas in Elul, and in more detail, it brings the chayas in Ani L'Doidi V'Doidi Li through the avodah of Tefillah. So now we understand that from Chai Elul and onwards, there should be an addition in the avodah of Tefillah, and an addition in the avodah of Limud Torah. And in Limud Torah, it should be stressed the Tefillah within Torah, which is the hiskashrus, the connection with the Noisan HaTorah, with the one who gives the Torah, especially through learning Chassidus, which is that which reveals the very essence of the connection of a Yid with Hashem. All of this is added in the year Tavshin Nun, when Chai Elul fell on Shabbos, which Shabbos is a day which contains the previous week and the coming, and blesses the coming week. And on Shabbos, that is kashrus with Hashem is emphasized in the davening and in the learning of Shabbos. And therefore, when Chai Elul falls on Shabbos, this addition of chayas is more recognizable. One can also connect this with Parshas Kisavai, which starts with the mitzvah of Bikurim. Bikurim are a reference to Yidden, because they are the first fruits, because Machshavton Shal Yisrael, the thought of Yidden, preceded any other thought. In fact, when we separate the matonos, first we give Bikurim, and then we give Truma. Truma is Torah Mem, Torah which was given on the 40 days of Har Sinai, and Bikurim, which is Yidden, come even before Truma. The idea of Bikurim in Chassidus is that the soul, as it is below, should connect with its very essence above. Like Chazal say in Medrash Tanchuma, in the beginning of Parshas Kisavai, that Moshe looked with Ruach HaKodesh, and he saw that there will be a time in history that the Yidden will not bring Bikurim. And therefore he instituted that Yidden should daven 3 times every single day, because through the hiskashrus of tefillah, that would be in the place of Bikurim. So we can see that connection between Bikurim and hiskashrus. And similarly, there's a connection between Chai Elul, Chayas, and Bikurim, because the whole idea of Bikurim is that the Eretz, through the avodah of Yidden in Eretz Yisrael, should become a dira b'tachtonim through the kibush of the Zionumas there should be a reflection of that etzem iskashrus down here in this world. The Chayes of Elul starts Chay Elul and continues in Parshas Kisavai, and it continues in the Parshas which are following Kisavai. In Nitzavim, there's a maimed of Atem Nitzavim Kulchem, all together, because all Yidden have that essential connection with Hashem. It's in a way of Vayelech, in a way of going from Chayil El Chayil, strength to strength. Ha'azinu, a Yid is closer to heaven than they are to the earth. And Bracha, Beirach, Moshe Ish Elokim, Moshe who is an Ish Elokim, gave the Bracha, and that's brought down Le'enei Kol Yisrael. And finally in Bereshis, when because of this iskashrus, it's clear that the reason why Hashem created the world was B'shvil Yisrael, B'shvil Torah. One can also connect this with Pirkei Avos, this Shabbos, which is Perek Gimel and Perek Dalet. In Perek Gimel, you have the number 3 emphasized, Tistaku B'shloisha Devarim. In Perek Dalet, it starts with the 4 milas of a person. And these two numbers, 3 and 4, represent Klolos, B'nai Yisrael and their Avodah, 3 Avos, 4 Imahos, together 7 branches and neiras of the menorah, 7 different types of neshamas. Gimel Moichin, Dalad Moichin, together 7 midas, and we start off the Pirkei Avos by saying V'yamech kulam tzadikim, that all Yidden have a chelik in olam haba. The hira of all the above is that we should add in all the avodas of Elul through bringing down a new chayas to Elul. And that chayas is the very essence of the hiskashrus of Yidden with Hashem, and also making a cheshbon tzedek, that even in a detail of time, in a detail of avodah, it's recognizable and is reflected the general avodah of a Yid, which is completely permeated with the chayas of the connection with Hashem. And therefore one should add on in Torah, in Tefillah, especially learning the Hilchas HaChag, in Gemilachs Chasodim, in supplying the Tzorchei HaChag, the needs of Yom Tov, Ichlu, Mashmanim, Mashusum, Mantakim, and certainly on Sukkot, in Simcha Ela B'Yayin, V'yihi Rotzain, that through all these good decisions, B'Poel we will bring the Geula, Tovei El Ha'aretz, as it says in the Haftarah, B'Ito Achishena, and especially as we finish the year Tavshin Nun, Teishnas Nisim, and go into the year Nun Aleph, which is Nifloes Arenu, as the Rabbonim have pasken, that Mashiach should come immediately. V'Yehi Ratzon, that the Kriyas HaTorah of Mincha should be Atan Nitzavim Hayom, with Mashiach and with Moshe, the girl Rishon and the girl Acharon. It should all be Takef Umiyad Mamash.